Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 14, Episode 38. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Wednesday, Steelers Nation. Dave, it was pretty calm throughout most of yesterday. Had the Mike Tomlin press conference, of course, on Tuesday, and then a lot of stuff happening late Tuesday night. A quarterback shuffle, you could call it, from Josiah Scott earlier in the day to Desmond King to Darius Rush, to give us a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, you never know which way these things are going to go, especially on coming out of a bye week on a Wednesday. But we have a lot to talk about today for sure.
All right, let's dive on in. Let's just start with the cornerback news, because that is I think the most pertinent and pressing part of the Steelers calendar right now. The most minor of news there is that cornerback Josiah Scott was reportedly at least signed off the Steelers practice squad by the Philadelphia Eagles. Scott played for the Eagles last season. A little curious, though, he was on the Steelers practice squad IR list, apparently healthy now, and I didn't know you could sign practice squad IR players by another team, but apparently that is the case there. So Scott did not technically count against Pittsburgh's practice squad, but now he is back to being an Eagle.
Yes, he is, and that's kind of one of those things that you don't see very often. I had to go back and see if I recall that ever happening before. I wonder if he had to be close to obviously being healthy and all like that, but it still is a practice squad designation, even though he's on an injured reserve list. Had it been obviously a straight reserve injured list, you couldn't sign him off off of that. But I guess the practice squad reserve injured list has a little bit different rules, and he's been on there, I think, a couple of weeks now. So it's just one of those things that you don't see very often, but he does have kind of links back to the Eagles there, and off he goes.
Yeah, off he goes. Now, obviously, it's not going to really critically impact the Pittsburgh Steelers. Scott did not appear in a game for Pittsburgh, was not ever part of the 53-man roster, was on the practice squad, and then moved to their practice squad IR list roughly a month ago. So it's more of a footnote, but did want to pass that along. But that was certainly not the only cornerback news of the day. Later Tuesday night, according to NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, the Steelers plan to release cornerback Desmond King or try to trade him. Much more likely seems to be a release path for him. That was actually kind of first hinted at by King on Twitter last night when he tweeted out, "Well, on to the next one." And you're never quite sure what tweets mean, but that one obviously had a Steelers connection and tie there. So Desmond King, not official yet as of Wednesday morning, but I assume that's going to happen here pretty soon. So Desmond King, one defensive snap, a couple of kick returns, and that was it. So surprising to see how this one went with Desmond King.
Yeah, this one went south kind of in a hurry. The thing is, from the moment he put that out on Twitter, it wasn't even an hour later, was it? Before Tom Pelissero had the initial news on that. Look, I mean, they obviously struggled to try to get him on the field, much of any. Had the one defensive snap against the Ravens, and that ended up being the touchdown run by who's the running back over there that scored on that play?
Justice Hill.
Yeah, Justice Hill on that play, and looked like there was a little miscommunication even between, I think, Minka and King prior to that play. But regardless, that ended up in the end zone. One snap, one touchdown for the offense. And obviously not too much to talk about as far as the special teams aspect goes. Alex, I almost wonder if this was a case of Desmond King saying, "Look, are you going to be able to find a spot for me? And if not, I really would like an opportunity to maybe play elsewhere, with another team." It's kind of rare to see the team have an instance like this with a veteran player that they sign unless there is some sort of talk about, hey, can you get me out of here, kind of thing here. What kind of credence would you, or what kind of possibility would you lend to the fact that King said, man, I really would like a chance to play somewhere else?
It's possible. It's obviously hard to say. Assuming he gets signed somewhere else and interviewed down the road, then maybe we'll get a bit of the backstory to it. Obviously, he wasn't playing, and that's probably partly the Steelers just didn't like whatever they saw in practice, and obviously the limited opportunities he had didn't suggest that this guy should be playing more. Although, again, we're literally talking one defensive snap and a couple of kick returns, so it's really not much to judge overall. I just thought there might be an opportunity there in Pittsburgh, given that the slot corner position was not super strong, that the run defense had struggled. I'm not, I said on Twitter last night, I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over this. Sometimes you take a chance on a veteran guy, and the way that you thought he might look isn't the way it looks whenever he gets to you. So this stuff does happen from time to time. But I just thought, given that Chandon Sullivan is not lighting up the world, and just given some of the specific struggles Pittsburgh's having, there would have been at least an opportunity for King to play something significant in at least one game to get a better view of what he could do. But clearly something in practice was telling this team not to give him that chance.
Yeah, and it starts off obviously with you got a little built-in excuse of trying to catch the moving train, and as Mike Tomlin likes to say, and all that kind of stuff there. But I mean, he never could crack it, and for a team that's not that could use obviously some slot help. Look, you go back a couple of weeks ago on Instagram. He not that you want to read too much into this stuff. He says he released some sort of picture. Can't wait until it's my turn or something like that. I'd bet dollars to donuts that he's just got tired of waiting, and probably went to them and said, look, if it's going to continue on me not having a good chance to get on the field, I'd much rather try to see if I can play somewhere else. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the way that it turns out here.
The question is, what was preventing King from seeing the field? Because it didn't feel like the Steelers secondary, especially at slot corners, was providing so much value that King couldn't crack it. Obviously, there's practice things and in classroom type things that we can't see. But what do you think the barrier was to King only seeing one defensive snap?
Yeah, I wish I could tell. I wish I could give you a good answer other than just maybe they weren't liking what they were seeing from a athletic, physical standpoint, or him actually catching on to things. We'll have to guess about that for the remainder of time unless something comes out about it. I don't have the answer on it. And obviously, we don't have in any tape to discuss either. One defensive snap, and we're not at practice to see any of that either. So once again, knowing the limited amount of information that we have, and it's super limited at this point, my best bet is he's gotten tired of waiting.
Sure, that makes sense overall. So what does this mean going forward? We'll talk about the Darius Rush signing here in a moment, although he's really more of an outside guy than a slot guy. So I assume it'll be fairly status quo in terms of slot snaps. Chandon Sullivan, I wrote on Twitter last night that, ideally for me, I think Patrick Peterson plays more in the slot to allow Joey Porter Jr. more snaps at left corner, not just in dime packages. We'll see overall, but I don't want to assume that this release of King means that's going to happen, because King wasn't playing at all to begin with, and Peterson was only seeing, dime package slot snaps. So the division of labor at slot corner may be the same and maybe different out of the bye. One of the things we'll be watching for in this Rams game. I
mean, it's not a bad stab, what you just said at it. You could potentially see this thing going this way, because look, and once again, we'll get into Darius Rush here in a minute and that news and all. I mean, he's an outside corner. He's not a slot guy. So that's, unless you started to go down that path. But even if you did, you're talking, a long ways away, potentially for him there. So, with us thinking that Joey Porter Jr. or hoping that Joey Porter Jr. will start getting more and more snaps on the outside, it's not unthinkable to think that Peterson could dip inside and Obviously, doing that, you would need one less person potentially on the depth chart when it comes to that. So, I mean, that's as good a stab at it as anything when it comes to kind of the trickle down or the trickle up, or however you want impact of this roster move specifically there. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the way to go here.
It is, interesting, the slot position overall. They've had some options that they really haven't used with King. Elijah Riley, we thought in camp was going to be one of those options. He's not taken a snap at slot corner this year. They've just had Sullivan and Peterson. And when I talk about moving Peterson inside, I know there's some downsides to that, but I advocate for that because I do want to see Porter play some more. That's kind of the big reason behind it. Two, the fact that Peterson's lost some of that speed on the outside will be mitigated in the slot. And I think he's got the savviness and kind of the IQ to play inside. And then Chandon Sullivan has not been terrible, but he's just, what does he do well? What value is he offering you? And at the expense of Joey Porter losing playing time, not having playing time, I just think this all makes more sense to do that with Peterson.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree with that. And we'll see. Look, this how nice would it be to have Cam Sutton about right now? And what is his? What do people have short memories about us and Cam Sutton?
I'm not sure. What are they saying about us and Cam Sutton?
There's like one or two people on Twitter claiming that we ran Cam Sutton off.
Oh, we didn't do that even if we were trying to, and I don't think either of us were attempting to do that. I said, I was not high on the Peterson signing whenever they made it. I had some reservations about it, and I've consistently said I think Omar Khan's biggest mistake of free agency, which what I thought was good overall, was letting Cam Sutton walk to Detroit over a couple $1 million that apparently this team was unwilling to pay him.
If there was any discussion about Cam Sutton that might have been negative, it was how much is too much.
Yeah, I know I did talk about the balance between paying a guy a bunch of money and then drafting a corner and not, but I still was somebody that really appreciated Sutton's play. You could have done both. Yeah, I mean, nothing prevented you from doing both.
They ended up doing both, signing Peterson and drafting Joey Porter Jr.
Right. And maybe I was wrong in that calculation back then to think that you couldn't do that. But regardless, the situation is where Pittsburgh's at right now, and we'll see how they play this new hand against the Rams.
Look, if you got up there in that $18, $19 million per range or whatnot, where some people thought Mike could go as far as a market value on Cam Sutton, but for what Cam Sutton ended up signing for with the Lions, the Steelers could have easily done that.
Sure, and the reporting was that Pittsburgh never even offered that. And how much more did Sutton get than what they gave Peterson? I think $3 million more per year. Didn't Sutton sign for $11 million per year, and Peterson see at $8 million? What's the number on Peterson?
That $7 million sounds about right. I'll have to double check here.
Yeah, but it's a couple $1 million more. It's a longer contract. Obviously, Sutton got 3 years. Peterson got 2. I forget the exact guarantees and signing bonuses. There's more to contracts than just average yearly value, of course. But point is, Pittsburgh certainly could have done it, and there wasn't a giant gap between what Sutton got versus what Pittsburgh gave Peterson.
Yeah, Peterson was $7 million per, right? $2 million. Okay. I mean, 2 year, $14 million deal, and the Sutton deal was, let's pull that up real quick.
$11 million, I'm pretty sure. 3 years, 33.
3 year, $33 million. $22.5 million is guaranteed, including a $10.9 million signing bonus. With that, I think one of the things in there that the Steelers probably definitely weren't going to do is the guaranteed salary. This is something that this team's really got to start looking. Here we go down a rabbit hole here. Hold on here on a Wednesday. This team really needs to start looking hard and heavy about retention of kind of those not top of market free agents or the outside additions of middling, not non-top of the market free agents. They're going to start really have to think, looking hard and close about guaranteed portions of second years of deals, I think.
I mean, they only recently started budging on that with the TJ Watt contract.
Right, with the Minka and the TJ Watt contract, and only because they now use the crux of, well, that's a top of the mark, top of the, the top position in the league, and that's how we justify it there. Now, obviously, not every player that you're going to re-sign or bring in from the outside is going to fit that criteria, but that's the way they've slowly gotten into this market, right? It used to be quarterbacks only, right? And TJ Watt got them to, and they really had no choice. TJ Watt got him off that mark, and then once TJ Watt got him off that mark, obviously Minka Fitzpatrick was able to move them off the mark as well too. Now Alex Highsmith, I don't think was able to, obviously get them off that mark there, but they are going to have to. That's a long way of saying that they could have retained Cameron Sutton.
Mm-hmm. But he's the Lion and Peterson's a Steeler, and we got to focus on what they have right now. So we'll see if things change. We can talk a bit later about Mike Tomlin's comments about the rookie class and some of the frustration that I'm seeing about the slow playing of the rookies and not committing to him, not committing to Broderick Jones. We'll talk about that more later in the show, but I think that kind of wraps up our thoughts. Any final takeaways on the very limited Desmond King experience?
Nah, all we can do is kind of speculate on that. Maybe more will come out after the wash. I wouldn't imagine he's going to be on the market very long. Can you find a team to give you to do one of those 6th and 7th round kind of swaps with him? Is there a team out there that will give you their 6th for your 7th to get him on that?
Well, shoot, the Eagles would have made sense. I thought, they just signed Josiah Scott, but the Eagles dealing with injuries, Roby's hurt, and Avonte Maddox has been out for the year since September. So that would have been a fit. Could you still try to do something? Maybe, but in all likelihood, when these situations, players end up getting cut. If teams know that you're about to cut them and you're just trying to trade them in a last second desperation heave.
All right. How about the incoming there?
Yeah, for those upset about Desmond King, which is fair, but I think a lot of people are going to be happy about this pending move, and I assume this will be tied to Desmond King. The Steelers reportedly signing cornerback Darius Rush off the Kansas City Chiefs practice squad, a rookie from South Carolina, 5th-round pick of the Indianapolis Colts, did not make their 53-man roster. The Chiefs picked him up on their 53, then eventually, I believe, cut him and put him on their practice squad. So a guy that I was a big fan of coming out of college this year, a guy that Pittsburgh had a pre-draft visit with as they looked at so many of these top cornerbacks in this class. And so he's an outside guy, as you said, not a slot guy, a rookie that has had already a pretty bumpy path in the NFL, but I think certainly somebody worth taking a flyer on.
Yeah, if you're going to go down that path, from the athletic profile, everything that the Steelers look for when it comes to those long athletic avatar kind of type cornerbacks, if you will. He certainly fits that pre-draft visitor this past offseason. You guys got to see and talk to him, I think, at the Senior Bowl. Really, a kid that really came out. I think was it you or Ross or one of you guys interviewed him? Maybe Jonathan Heitritter, and he just really, enamored with Mike Tomlin. I think was the gist of that interview and all like that. So not surprising that they had interest in him, and then obviously circled back to him. I think because of this cornerback class, it made a guy like him slip down. What would he end up going? 5th round to the Colts, I think. And I think I think a lot of people, Dane Brugler, I think Jeremiah, even you in your draft profile, I think had him as like a 2nd or 3rd round grade on him. And once again, I just think that the totality of the class probably pushed him down a little bit there. But fast forward into the preseason with the Colts, it's disappointed that he only played 49 defensive
42,
snaps.
I believe.
42 snaps in the preseason with the Colts in just 2 games. I would imagine he had some sort of maybe a minor injury or something in that preseason finale. He did not play in that game for the Colts. Most of those 42 snaps came in the preseason opener. Another 14 came in the second one against the Bears. There's not a lot of tape really to look at overall, especially when I think only half of those snaps were pass defense snaps. He was only targeted 3 times. The first time was kind of on a wide receiver screen that kind of got busted up and the ball went up in the air. It landed in his hands and he went pick 6 on it. Welcome to the NFL moment. Looks like everything's going to go great for him in that game against the Bills. Later in that game against the Bills, kind of the second target on him, really didn't show great technique or anything on kind of a 7 route, corner route, if you will. Little touchy-feely, grabby, and even still the receiver got loose for him from him for a touchdown on that. Fast forward to the game against the Bears, the second preseason game. I mean, there's not much in there. I mean, even run support or anything like that when it comes to that. The lone target he has in that game is a double move at the opposite corner position, and he bites hard on it and gives up a longish kind of touchdown in that situation. So 3 preseason targets, 1 pick 6, and 2 receptions for 2 touchdowns the other way. Feast and famine.
For sure.
When it comes to that. So and I went through both reels. It doesn't take long to get through 42 defensive snaps, especially when there's not a lot of action your way there. I defer to you, Alex Kozora, because I think your college, you did the draft profile on him coming out of South Carolina. I think that evaluation still reigns supreme here.
Well, let me just ask you really quickly with the Colts. Was he primarily right corner, left corner? Felt like maybe some right corner. Was he playing both? What was his usage?
Both. The first game against the Bills, he was right. The second game against the Bears, he was left. Now, there was fewer snaps that he played against the Bears, 14 okay. in total against the Bears. So whatever the math comes out to, 28 on the right against the Colts and 14 on the left against the Bears.
Gotcha. Yeah, my report of him, again, I was high on him. I know his teammate Cam Smith got more attention, but I thought this was a really good athlete, straight line guy, former receiver, understood the position of how routes are run and where things break. I thought well overall, a good man coverage corner, better than his own type of guy. Just somebody that was smart, had special teams value, even, running down punts his senior season. I thought that was impressive overall, high effort type of guy with experience. And again, just some raw tools and traits and athleticism to work with. Technically, thought needed some work, needed to be stronger in the run game, better tackler. I think the big thing on him, he had a ton of injuries at South Carolina, just kind of throughout his career, just never really consistently stayed healthy until really his final season and was kind of able to put things together. So it was surprising to see him fall to the 5th round. It was surprising to see him get released by the Colts. I believe he was one of the highest draft picks to be outright cut and not make the initial 53-man roster. And the Colts had a weird roster construction initially, coming out of that 90-man cut down to 53. And obviously he's bounced around since. So I don't know how much this guy's going to play early on. I'm certain to be inactive, assuming he's on the roster for Sunday's game. He may be inactive for a little while here as he kind of gets his feet wet with a new team and being a rookie overall, but there's hopefully some potential down the road with him.
This is height, weight, speed project, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of a toolsy guy. He's got almost 33-inch arms. We know Pittsburgh likes their corners to be tall and long and athletic and can play man coverage. That's why they drafted Porter Jr. and Corey Trice, and hopefully he gets back for next year in rush. So when you have Levi Wallace, a free agent to be, some uncertainty with Patrick Peterson's future, James Pierre, a free agent after the season. Not that Rush is going to be your one-to-one replacement, but you want to have some corners there that can be on your offseason roster. And, again, you go into the offseason next year of Porter and hopefully a healthy Trice and Rush. Those are some young, athletic, toolsy corners to try to begin building around.
when you woke up yesterday morning, you didn't think you'd be talking about either one of those two, did you?
No, although, I mean, I think Steeler fans are excited about Rush because he was a name that got mentioned so much during cutdowns. Whenever he got cut, I got so many comments. It was basically two names. It was Desmond King. Can they go sign Desmond King? And can they go claim or get Darius Rush? And so I know there's a sting about King and it not working out in Pittsburgh, but hopefully that sting kind of gets soothed a bit by Rush coming in, because those were the two top names that Steeler fans were mentioning at that final cutdown date.
And once again, they had links to Rush going back to in the pre-draft process, so it's not shocking there. And you talk about an all-star game kid. You talk about the height, weight, speed. I mean, he matches out all the RAS scores and all like that the Steelers look for. So it's not surprising when it comes to that. Look, even if Desmond King would have played out this year, what were probably the odds of him sticking around past this year? Probably not great. At least this gives you a guy to look at, during the off season and beyond. Here's the thing: with him coming off the Chiefs practice squad, he's going to have to at least stay on the Steelers 53-man roster for 3 weeks. So we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, hopefully longer than 3 weeks, of course, but at least the minimum, or at least that spot has to be spoken for, which will mean he'll be on the roster for 3 weeks. So again, I think don't expect this guy to contribute right away, though. I mean, just want to make sure that's clear. I thought he was pretty raw coming out, and again, the injuries I thought probably stunted his development in college. This is a guy that could be inactive for many weeks here to begin his Steelers career.
And once again, when we're talking about 42 defensive snaps, and not even half of those are worth watching, to be honest with you, either runs away or passes away, and that kind of thing. I if there was one other quick minor observation about him, he doesn't get in a hurry to get to the pile. Is that
in terms of like run defense or just general,
like all of it
post play? Yeah, I thought his run defense. What did I write my report here? I said it needs to be more active in the run game. Will flail a bit coming downhill, not come to balance as a tackler, prone to getting stuck on blocks. So that's all kind of in the vein of somebody that's not super active coming downhill and kind of cleaning some stuff up.
Right. I just. And once again, it's not enough snaps to draw a hard conclusion. But the only other thing that really stuck out to me is he was not the first one to the pile, any pile.
And you had said earlier that he got beat on a double move for a touchdown. Is that what you had said?
Yeah,
okay.
That's up on the Twitter machine.
Okay. That's in my report. I said, can stop beat against double moves and have to catch up. So it kind of carries over right there. And Chris Adamski from the Trib tweeting, just as we're talking about it, Darius Rush has a locker in the Steelers facility. Expect a formal announcement on his signing soon, which I assume means King's going to get the HEFO here pretty soon. So probably means no trade materialized, and the move should be official by 4:00 today.
All right.
So that's the cornerback shuffle.
Well, let's do a byproduct of that real quick. Everybody's upset. Why is King? Why not Gunnar Olszewski? And I guess this kind of parlays into kind of the news on Diontae and Anthony McFarland, and looking forward and kind of hoping both those guys make it back off IR on Saturday. All this cornerback shuffling is a cornerback shuffling. It's a 1-for-1 move on your 53-man roster there. So come Saturday. Obviously, everybody's got their fingers crossed that both Diontae Johnson and Anthony McFarland will both be activated from the reserve injured list. And if indeed that's the case, you still need to accommodate them by removing two other players off your 53-man roster there. So if you're worried about Gunnar Olszewski at this point, I don't think he's entirely out of the woods. And in fact, my kind of theory on this, it might be right, it might be wrong, is that they want to hold on to Gunnar through this week of practice, just to make sure Diontae can get through a full week of practice with that hamstring of his. And additionally, because of return capabilities that Gunnar has, maybe some of that linked to making sure Anthony McFarland can get through this week as well too, being as how he could potentially be your kick returner there. So don't don't give up your hope yet of the Steelers parting ways with Gunnar Olszewski there. So I from where I sit right now, I think it's Gunnar and maybe that other third string running back, right?
Yeah, Godwin, Igwebuike.
Bless you.
Right. So yeah, that's an important point, because that was the other response I got was, why are they cutting King? Why are they not cutting Gunnar? Let's see on Gunnar. This team will make a move, assuming Johnson gets activated off of IR to the 53. That'll come Saturday. Those things happen the day before games, and so they're going to have, like you said, have to clear a spot for him. And if McFarland is active, then I think Igwebuike is the obvious name there to get replaced by McFarland. So Johnson replacing Gunnar. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Right. I mean, who else on the? I mean, I guess, man, they ain't gonna do Rodney Williams bad, are they?
Oh, I mean, Frymuth's coming. That's true. Frymuth's back. Williams. Ooh, that's a good point, Dave.
Yeah, but I mean, that guy. I'm putting that guy out there on special teams, man. I think
you're gonna dress all 4 tight ends, and you're healthy. I don't know if you're gonna get all 4 tight ends a hat.
I don't know. I would seriously consider it, though. I think that guy's earned that. I think you got to reward that kind of stuff, man.
Sure, I get that. I hadn't considered Williams. I hadn't realized that. So that's a fair point. We'll see. Just stay tuned is my whole thing. Maybe Gunnar stays. People can be mad, but let's give it till Saturday.
Can you imagine this fan base if it's Rodney Williams, if Gunnar survives? And poor Rodney Williams has got to clear waivers, you know.
Sure. But let's just hold your fire until this team makes the official moves, and then we'll come back and talk about it from there. All right, Dave.
And don't shoot at us.
Yeah. Get ready to duck here, Dave. All right, Mike Tomlin holding his Tuesday press conference coming out of the bye week. And from an injury standpoint, this team, I know Mike Tomlin has said there's never been a bye week he didn't like, and bye weeks are always coming at good times. But for Pittsburgh, I thought week 6 was the perfect bye week from themselves standpoint. The AFC North round then went 3-0, but from getting healthy, Tomlin basically, talking about Diontae Johnson, McFarland returning to practice. Pat Frymuth said he's going to play. DeMarvin Leal's had a concussion protocol. Presley Harvin, the punter, should be back in action in this one. James Daniels may return, etc. So overall, this team much from week 7 than they were entering and exiting week number 5.
I think that's at least one of the main takeaways here from the press conference there. I think the other thing that we're obviously watching this week, and Mike Tomlin didn't shed a lot of light on it, the depth chart the weekly depth chart comes out in the pregame release. You can either choose to read it or make a paper airplane out of it. Both probably it might be more viable as a paper airplane, to be quite honest with you. But it's something that we look for every week, and that depth chart in that pregame release showed that Dan Moore Jr. is still listed ahead of Broderick Jones at left tackle. What does it mean? I don't know. I think we're going to find. I think it's one of those things where we're just going to have to wait and see. Mike Tomlin did not come right out and say who was going to be the starting left tackle. He left open the door that it's on a case-by-case basis as far as a starter losing their job when it comes to injury. In so many words, he didn't even guarantee that Dan Moore Jr. would be healthy enough, although he did look good. He said during the Monday bonus practice, so I think there's still some question about whether or not Dan Moore Jr. will be able to return from that knee injury come Sunday. All of what he had to say on Tuesday. You ever watch, you grow up watching Charlie Brown, all the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving? And
yeah, we're in that time of year. We're in a Charlie Brown season right now.
Yeah, Charlie Brown's parents, when they talk on the phone.
Wah.
Wah. That's a lot of Mike Tomlin's press conference on Tuesday sounded like that to me. But from what little bit he did give us worth using, I'm going to speculate for you and speculate on something other than groins. I think there's a good shot that Broderick Jones is your left tackle on Sunday against the Rams.
I'm not sure where I'm at with this one, and I thought you were going to go with a Charlie Brown reference of Broderick Jones as Charlie Brown and Mike Tomlin's Lucy pulling the football back, and just a little tease there with the one start. Mike Tomlin was asked essentially if Dan Moore is healthy enough to play, will he start? And Tomlin said, "quote That's a big if. We've got some work ahead of us. He'll be given an opportunity to show his progress over the course of the week, and we'll make that decision at the appropriate time. It doesn't behoove us to make hypothetical statements at the early portions of the week. He looked pretty good yesterday. We'll see where the week leads us." End quote. And behoove was on the report of the day calendar.
5 times behoove.
Yeah, for Mike Tomlin yesterday. So we don't know exactly how the reps went on Monday between Moore and Jones. We know that Moore said he didn't get every single snap at left tackle. He was a bit limited, but he said he participated in every single session that they had. So here's my thought on that. Assuming that's first team work, and because he was running second team, I think that would have come out by some reporter or by Moore himself. If Moore is getting at least a solid amount of first team reps, are they really going to go to Broderick Jones, who's not going to get all that kind of, like, if Jones was going to be your starter, he's got to get all those reps there as first team, because he's the rookie making his would-be second career start. So that tells me they're leaning Dan Moore right now.
All right, I'm going the other way. Maybe it's just my my hopeful reading into it, what I want to read into it. So what you're saying is they're attempting to put the toothpaste back in the tube.
They're trying to. Because, I mean, if Jones was going to be your guy and you're going to give him half the starting snaps in practice, that's not putting a rookie in position to succeed.
It was a bonus day, though. Let's see. Maybe they just want to see how Dan moves.
Sure. I mean, I think today is going to be important.
Today is going to be the important day. Now, look, here's the thing. The media can't, even though probably some will, the media can't come right out and say who took all the snaps unless one of the players tells them they took all the snaps. Or
but they usually are able to figure out a way to get a player to talk about it or frame it and skirt the rule.
Right. If you do want to put Broderick Jones in the best possible chance to succeed, he needs to take all the first team reps at left tackle. You're correct.
100%. And I'm pretty confident in saying he did not do that Monday.
Right. Now I'm willing to chalk that off. And once again, maybe it's me trying to find an easy out here. I'm willing to chalk that all up for a bonus day. We want to see how Dan moves.
Fair. And maybe you're right. And so I think you're right. Today is going to be important.
But today I have no out after today.
Yeah. Broderick Jones did just speak with the media and said he has not been told who the starting left tackle is. I think practice is not yet gotten underway, so we don't know how practice reps were divvied up on Wednesday, but something to watch for, and hopefully we'll have clarity come Friday, because, Moore's going to dress in this game. He's healthy enough to dress. It's a question of, is he going to start or not?
I know what way you're going to answer this, but I have to ask anyway. What is the correct decision here?
For me, Broderick Jones.
Yeah,
I think he's the guy. I thought he had a good start, and I think he's going to be your starting left tackle at some point. And that's what he was drafted to become. And this is the time to do it.
Barring something that we don't see, like understanding things in the playbook and assignments or stuff, once again, that mental errors at practice or whatnot, none of that stuff we can see and put our hands on. But barring anything of like that, he's got to be your starting left tackle, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of frustration right now about, people, they're starting Dan Moore and you can't do that. Again, let's just wait and see. I'm leaning that I think Moore is going to be the starter, but I'll reserve judgment and not air those frustrations until we know for sure, because maybe Jones does become the guy. Tomlin has left that door open. He's not committed to either guy right now. So I'm not going to get my heart rate up over it until I actually see what the decision is. Same with Joey Porter Jr. on the defensive side of the football. So we'll see, but just based on, Tomlin did say that's a big if about Moore, and that's how he started that answer. So if you're looking for something that makes you think Jones, for Tomlin to say that might crack that door open.
Right.
All right. What else did Mike Tomlin have to say that caught your attention on Tuesday, Dave?
He's not concerned about he's not concerned about your pass defense stats or anybody's pass defense stats. Obscure.
Mike Tomlin, not a stats of the weird kind of guy, so I'm guessing he's not reading those articles. I didn't think yards allowed from receivers was obscure, but I guess Tomlin disagrees.
He's been some weird press conferences this year, right? Almost like a really super defensive.
Yeah, I thought that was his answer.
More so than normal.
A little defensive there, sure.
We already know he don't like doing these things. He usually fakes it a lot better with local. Now you get him outside in some of these other, interview sessions on podcasts and major media and Rich Eisen he talks about how he's the same person all the time with the player, or at least tries to be, the same kind of person. You get him in a media setting outside of Tuesday, he's different, it just came off as, once again, not one of his better press conferences yesterday. Not as bad as the one a couple of weeks ago, obviously, but he seems more perturbed at anything right now. You know what? To me, it comes off as he knows he's got a lot of problems. He's not really sure how he's going to solve them, to be honest with you.
I thought it was interesting. He was asked, what is the identity of this team? Or do you have an identity? And he said something to the effect of, in some ways we do, in some ways we're evolving and trying to find that. So, I think it's another frustration for this team to be where they were at a year ago at the bye. The record's better, obviously, much better, but still trying to figure out who they are and how they win.
He's trying to defense this team to a playoff spot.
That's kind of always been the way Pittsburgh has been built with Tomlin. He's a defensive guy.
But he's really trying to defense it this time, because I'm not sure he I don't see how you can have any even going back to last year, and some things got a little bit better after the bye, but once again, was it one of those Ritz cracker situations where anything's going to look better than what happened pre-bye last year? They have. And look, you've missed Freiermuth, you missed Diontae Johnson since week one, and this is a captain obvious statement, but I think Diontae Johnson and Pat Freiermuth have been on the field together for all of 23 offensive snaps this season.
Right, and Tomlin mentioned getting back a quote expert route runner like Diontae Johnson is going to be huge, and I've talked about how important that's going to be to take some of the attention off of George Pickens and hopefully create some easy wins in this offense, provided that Johnson is utilized the correct way and better than what he was last year. So, and then with Freiermuth, assuming he gets more involved more, there's certainly a lot of reasons to believe, the personnel for Pittsburgh will be better against the Rams.
We have got to see this offense take some sort of step forward here, right? Assuming these guys come back from the injuries.
Sure, it has to be better. There has to be improvement. There is no.
But is next week going to become this, Alex? This has got to be the week. We talked about this the other day with Diontae Johnson coming back. Him merely coming back will help in some aspects. You would think that would take some pressure off of George Pickens. But if they don't use him right in the overall scheme and start, let some of these guys run out in space more, it's not going to matter in the grand. It's just going to be, better looking chairs on a Titanic.
Sure. They have to utilize him correctly. We'll see. We have not really been able to evaluate that. The guy played 2.5 quarters in week one before hurting his hamstring. So again, we'll just have to wait and see on that.
All right. What else about Tomlin's presser?
Interesting question about Kenny Pickett, acknowledging the clutch plays that he made last year, the clutch plays he made against Baltimore, the game-winning drive. And the question was essentially, how do you try to make that happen for the first three quarters? And Tomlin really kind of sidestepped that part of it, but just talked about, the weighty moments, bringing out the best in Kenny Pickett and rising to the occasion, which I think is true. But the question still hangs and remains, how do you get this Pickett and this offense in totality to look better until before there's 5 minutes left in the game, and you got to have it. I mean, that's an issue this offense has had for a couple seasons now.
I'd rather not see him put in a position where he has to put on his clutch jeans.
Right. I mean, it's good to have. It's really important, but you want to be able to try to win a game, comfortably, or play with a lead for once, something this team does not do.
Right. Agreed. Look, I mean, we never doubted from the moment or not too long after he was drafted, that the guy's very mature and no moment's too big for him and yada yada. I don't think he blinks in most situations here. That wasn't the main target of the question though that he was asked,
and he did not really address that part. Although, I mean, how do you answer that? How do you get Kenny Pickett to be better in the first three quarters? There's no mystical, magical answer to do that.
I would just come out and say that I wouldn't try to deflect it though, like he did. I would just come out and say, look, we're that's one of the things we tried to look at during the bye week.
Right. And speaking of that, Tomlin said, Dave, are your assurances rested? Because rest assured, Mike Tomlin says this team did their due diligence during the bye to look at the offense and try to correct some things. What that means, what that looks like, who knows? Will they repeat their post-bye week success of last year? Again, we'll see on that. But Mike Tomlin using the bye week to self-scout and dive into the negativity of their offense.
Yeah, he said, fine-tooth comb. I hope they had a big comb.
For sure.
My answer to that is, don't tell me about the labor pains. Just show me the baby.
Right. That's all you can do. It's a results-oriented business. I do have a video on the site this morning. The Steelers must remove this play from their playbook. We talk about some of those plays that just don't work, the beat your head against the wall type moments. Pittsburgh has run this one particular inside zone run paired with jet motion 5 times this year. It's been a failure literally all 5 times. One of those I'm ripping out of the playbook, Dave.
All right. Fair enough. And we talked last podcast or two ago about maybe mix in a couple of these, perimeter runs and things along those nature. Maybe an extra toss, maybe an extra jet sweep, maybe an outside. Mix in a little bit more outside zone. Or here's something real creative. How about trying to pull your guards a little bit more?
I'd love him to be asked about that, or Matt Canada to be asked about that. About why is that not being used really at all in Pittsburgh?
Right. So we'll see as far as that goes, but he is, rest assured, Alex, that they went through everything and did a lot of self-scouting. Hopefully that self-scouting ends up with maybe maybe 3 or 4 dropbacks. Can you at least fit in 3 or 4 dropbacks from under center? They would shock the living out of opposing defenses if they did that. I would like to maybe see Canada try to make everything look more the same if he's going to continue running the same concepts. You know what I'm saying? At least
sure.
have your seven different concepts come out of the same look. So at least they're guessing when it comes to that.
That's what good offenses and good coordinators do. That's what the Dolphins do, the 49ers do, the whole Shanahan tree. Should mention also another film room breakdown this morning, since you mentioned the toss plays. Pittsburgh Zorro toss. They're taking the play out of the Shanahan, McDaniel, 49ers Dolphins playbook of this fast motion toss play, using it a couple times against Baltimore. So breaking down on the site this morning what that looks like and how it's schemed up.
Okay.
All right, Dave, I want to mention here Kevin Dotson. We had an article earlier this week quoting to PFF, and I know grades can be subjective and we don't lean on them too often, but considering that I'm sure you and I are not watching Kevin Dotson snap by snap until this week came around, he is the NFL's second best guard in his 3 starts he's had this season. Began the season as a backup, entered the starting lineup the past 3 games, and has, by all accounts, done really well. Do you have any particular takeaway from that? I know, again, we're not watching him as closely as we're watching the Steelers, but Dotson seemingly finding a ton of success out there in LA.
I've made it through the first 3 quarters of the Rams versus Cardinals tape, and it did not look awful at all in all phases.
Is there anything that you can attribute that to? Because obviously it did not seem to look that good in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit the other day. I think it's more along the lines of letting him play and him back at right guard where he played predominantly in, or really all he played at college there. It doesn't look like he's having to think as much there, really, overall. I mean, look, we have had some great clips here and there of him in pass protection and keeping that wide base and being physical and almost like a dancing bear. And I think once you get into some of this tape on him in his time with the Rams, I think you're going to see some of that as well too. And they didn't have a concerted effort of running much of any in the first half against the game against the Cardinals. But I think even McVay came out and said, and I think players did too, that they came out in that second half and said, we're going to run the ball. And that's when their running game really came alive in the second half of that game. And although not all the runs obviously came to Dotson, long story short, in what I've seen of the all 22 on him, overall he looked pretty damn good.
Yeah, no, that was my impression as well. And I think it's a combination of factors. I think maybe, as you said, going back to right guard certainly isn't going to hurt, and that's his more quote unquote natural spot. I think the scheme fit, I've mentioned that religiously with Kevin Dotson. He did not fit well with Pat Meyer's system, and I think probably was too much on his plate for his style. And it is a contract year for him, and that can certainly be a motivator as well. He knows how important this year is. I think he's even acknowledged that after getting traded over from the Rams, that if he has a big year, he can get paid this offseason, and he's on his way to doing that.
One thing I forgot to look. Does he have any how many penalties does he have?
No penalties against Kevin Dotson this year. 3 starts. It's not been a ton of snaps, right, but considering the penalty machine he was last year, it's a big improvement.
Right. That's something else that makes you wonder if he's not having to think as much.
Yeah. Now, I know he got tagged a couple times for those ineligible man down fields, which really aren't on the lineman, but there was enough of the other stuff, all starts and holding calls, that certainly, were not external factors.
Well, while I got it pulled up here, let's see. Last season, false start, holding, ineligible downfield, unnecessary roughness, false start, offensive holding, ineligible downfield, false start, offensive holding, ineligible downfield. Those were his penalties last year.
Right. And right now, perfectly clean for this Rams team. This offense, it looks pretty good, and we'll talk about them more Friday, but just watching their tape on offense last night, Dave, Cooper Kupp returns and they feed him the ball every chance they get. And so Tomlin also talking about trying to stop Cooper Kupp, going to be the number one challenge in this game, at least offensively.
And he doesn't, 2019 was too long ago for him to think about when they did such a good job on him. And look, you're not going to, the odds of you shutting the guy like Cooper Kupp out 2 games in a row. What you don't want to happen, I think the onus on this game, I had to go back and look at, the Rams when he plays, and if you keep him under, what's their kind of win probability if you hold him like under 80 yards or 75, whatever the line in the sand is on that. You just want to limit that guy from making big plays. And there was at least one time in this game against the Cardinals that he got free down the field. He's moving for a guy that had the injury that he's had. He looks back. And from a health standpoint, he looks like the same old Cooper Kupp, and they are going to try to move him. One of the things I think stuck out, and I don't know how much you've watched either. I mean, they move him around quite a bit in that offense as well too, and they are going to scheme specific targets for him in this game, both intermediate. He's got a great ability after the catch, and they're going to both scheme shot plays for him as well too.
Yeah, he's going to be the primary read in basically every single play, especially third down red zone. That Cardinals catch you're talking about, that was, a moment where he's the backside receiver. Typically, he's the slot receiver, number 2, number 3, but in that situation, it's 3-by-1. He's backside. They get a 1v1 look, and Stafford throws it up, and Kupp comes down with it. That was the first play of their 2-minute drive, and so they took a shot there. So they do a really good job of scheming those guys up, and Nakua is playing well, and got a veteran quarterback and Stafford able to read and decipher coverages. So it's still going to be a big time challenge for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, now they are missing. Now we know for sure they're going to be missing their top 2 backs in Kerryon Williams and who's the other one? Rivers.
Yeah, Ronnie Rivers. So it's going to be the rookie Zach Evans and then the mixture of the veterans, Royce Freeman, and they just signed Myles Gaskin off the Vikings practice squad.
Right. So they will be a little bit handicapped in that aspect when it comes to their running game, which, came alive in the second half of that game against the Cardinals.
Yeah, Williams had a big day, so that's going to be an important thing because that backfield is going to look totally different this week compared to last week. One other side note here that's related to Pittsburgh in a down-the-road sense, and we've written about it for the site and mentioned it a couple times, but according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, Colts quarterback, their rookie Anthony Richardson is scheduling season-ending shoulder surgery to fix his AC joint injury. And so that basically confirms that Richardson will not play against Pittsburgh later this season when the Steelers face the Colts.
Right. That's a shame.
Yeah. Talented player. The injury is already mounting for Richardson. Anything else here, Dave, that I'm missing that we did not talk about today?
Was there anything else in Tomlin?
Not really. Overall, I think that's kind of the majority of it. TJ Watt did speak with Dan Patrick, said he's going to appeal his fine for removing his helmet at the end of the game against Baltimore.
Good
he's
luck
not
with
winning
that.
Yeah, he's not winning that. He can appeal it all he wants. Not gonna win that in my mind.
And as far as the punch too, he's probably not going to win that one either. If indeed he didn't come right out and say, I would think that it's probably standard procedure for these guys to appeal everything.
Yeah,
for the most part.
No really cost to the player. He's got his team that does that, his agency that handles that. So it's worth a shot. Worst they do is tell you no when you're paying what you're paying. If you appeal though, do you get that? I know the fine comes out of your check, but if you appeal, do they wait to take it out of your check, or if you win the appeal, do they reimburse you? I just wonder how the NFL.
I think Watt even said it already comes out of your check
automatically. So
right.
Even you don't even have time to appeal it. It's already out by the time you decide to appeal. I guess is how that works.
Right. I think that's you have been deducted this amount. You are welcome to appeal, and if it comes, I wonder if they pay you interest back on that money.
I'm guessing they don't. I'm guessing NFL does not do that. But yeah, I do wonder. So if you win the appeal, like Quan Alexander won his appeal in the preseason, he gets that check from the NFL, I guess.
I would probably add it back into a check later on down the line at some point, I would imagine.
All right. There you go. Anything else here, Dave? I think we've covered all of our bases.
All right. If you believe so, then we have.
All right. Let's get to a couple of reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, Sim Football Critic, Joey Porter Jr. starting now, ? What's up, guys? Definitely want to hear your take on this. Of course, by the time you read this, may have already addressed it, but here it goes. What did Desmond King not show the Steelers to remain on the team? If I recall correctly, King didn't play many defensive snaps, and if he did, it was less than 5. So what was the evaluation? Does this mean we'll see JPJ starting on the outside with Pat Pete move to the nickel spot when they go sub package? And what do they like so much about Chandler? Sim, I mean, we've already hit on, I mean, there's no sense to kind of rehash. I mean, we had a conversation about, and it's one defensive snap that he played so far, so there's not much to evaluate there. All we can do is speculate at this time that maybe Desmond King said, look, if you're not going to play me, let me out of here. We don't know. Maybe that'll come out in the wash in a little bit. I think Alex's speculation and came right after the King move too, is maybe this is a sign that we'll see more Joey Porter Jr. on the outside and potentially Patrick Peterson inside. I still would bet dollars to donuts that Joey Porter Jr. does not start this particular week, but maybe we see him in the 30-ish snap range or something along those lines in there. And at some point in the next couple of weeks, Joey Porter Jr. is going to be on the field starting.
I don't want to say.
Has to be.
I hope so. But this team, if they don't do it this week, then what is going to be the impetus to do that besides injury? I don't want to say the King release is necessarily a sign. It's my hope that Peterson will play inside more, but just because King is released doesn't mean they have to change anything. They can just keep doing what they're doing with Sullivan and Peterson, and King is not really involved in that equation. If King was playing a bunch of snaps and they release him, then that changes things, but obviously he wasn't. So we'll see. But my hope is that Peterson will play inside in more nickel situations that will give Porter more snaps than just dime packages. Because if Porter's not going to start and he's going to play more, then he has to play a nickel. And that means Peterson and Wallace have to go somewhere, which could mean that they flip Peterson to the right side or don't play Peterson or move Peterson to the slot. Something's got to give there. So that's what I'll be watching for.
Bryce wants to know, coming off the bye, could you see Kenny taking more initiative to go rogue, if you will, and start changing more of the Canada's calls to get the offense into better situations? I could definitely see a world where Kenny just says, screw it, and take more of the onus to change plays and live with the consequences. Your thoughts? I think it's you want my thoughts? I think it's a pretty outlandish statement. I don't think there's been really any changing making a slide protection and making sure your wide receiver knows it's a cover zero situation is not my thoughts of a quarterback going rogue.
No, and that was all practice. Those are things that they actually work on during the week and apply to game day. So it's not going rogue. It's working within the structure of what you're taught in practice. I don't know what freedom exactly Pickett does and doesn't have right now. I would not expect him to go rogue. So I would say no to that. To what degree does he change the play, and what degree could he change the play more? Those things are hard for me to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I think, using the term kind of going rogue, I don't see where all that's coming from, and especially if it's just off of that one play. To George Pickens there. Second part of this he is giving this some thought, and do you think it would be smart for the Steelers to start using more 20 personnel, pony, with Jalen and McFarland as the motion men, can still run downhill. Jalen and McFarland as the motion men can still run downhill with Najee, use play action, have the threat of those jet sweeps Canada loves. And we talk about jet sweeps Canada loves. They've run 2 jet sweeps this year.
Yeah, I mean, they ran him a bunch more last year. I think we'll see if they use him more with Diontae back. Maybe that opens up Calvin more often.
Do you view, what did we say it was, 33 or 34 jets? I mean, that's an average of less, or let's even say it was 2 a game. Do you view 2 jet sweeps a game as a lot?
Well, I think it was more Jets than any other NFL team last year, if my memory serves. So relatively speaking, it's a lot. But I think to the question, we saw some pony against Baltimore, and I think Warren got a jet run off of that, and it got a decent gain. So maybe that's something they look to sprinkle in more. I mean, when you have Freiermuth back, it may limit that personnel grouping a little bit because you want Pat out there, and Washington might be out there some. So I think we'll see it occasionally, but not too often.
Right. I mean, define more.
I guess at least once a game, because we didn't see it at all until I believe this Ravens game.
Okay, this got me thinking. I wanted to address this at some point today. I just came back in my mind again. What do you think about the scoring? There wasn't a lot of scoring. This past week was noticeable across the league as being low. All right, and it has been really, I think, for the season. What do you think about the scoring being down around the league? And I think it kind of was last year as well too, wasn't it? What do you think about that? And do you get the feel now when you watch these games overall that it feels like it's like every third snap now becomes an extended play situation for a quarterback?
I hadn't thought about the latter too much. I really hadn't thought about, I guess, either component that much. I think I have 2 thoughts on that. Yeah, scoring's down a bit. This year, I believe teams are averaging 21.7 points per game. Last year was 21.9. Years before, we were looking at more like 23, 24 points per game. I would say two things that may contribute to that. A, teams using more too high shells, which cap big plays and limit big plays. I don't have the exact data on that, so I might be wrong about that, but I'm guessing there's been fewer explosive plays as teams are playing more too high. And then I just think, secondly, some of these freaky pass rushers. I mean, each year it feels like there's just a draft class and emergence of just young, athletic pass rushers, whether you're talking, Micah Parsons or, older guys, but, Myles Garrett, of course, TJ Watt. And when you have guys that can really get after the quarterback to produce those negative plays, that, scoring is going to be down. And I think just the D-line talent, the pass rush talent is better than the offensive line talent in the NFL. And that gives the defense a clear advantage.
Yeah, my thought to the more extended plays is it feels like the defensive front players coming into the league are higher quality and across the front in general, not just edge guys, but just defensive linemen in particular, and their pass rush ability. It just feels like that the quality of that's been better than the offensive line talent coming out.
I think that's 100% true. I don't know if that applies to other areas. I don't know if the corners are better than the receivers. I think probably receivers have a more overall advantage than the corners coming out, but I think certainly the D-line play is much better. The NFL is always starved for quarterback play and offensive line play. Those are two things they never have enough of, and that's why those positions and those guys are so valuable.
Richard Jameson writes in offensive coordinator responsibilities. I've heard you say that the Steelers' offense is too predictable and that they are rarely use one play to set up another play later in the game. Further, I've heard that the Steelers do not use play action effectively. Would all these problems be mitigated if their offensive coordinator were responsible for both the passing game and also the running game? Would it integrate the offense more effectively? How do other teams divide responsibilities for passing game and run game? It would take a lot of diving to answer the second part of that question.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Canada has a role and isn't unaware of the run game. I know in Pittsburgh, traditionally, it's been more offensive line coach is the run game coordinator de facto, even though it's not the official title. It varies team to team. There are certainly run game coordinators and pass game coordinators and teams that, that really have those actual titles. Play action rate is low in Pittsburgh. There's no disputing that. So it's not that it's ineffective, but it is infrequently used.
Right. Would like to see more play action, and people say, I think the studies, we talk about this every 7 podcasts. It seems like that, play action can still work even if you don't have an effective running game. Now, the more effective your running game is, obviously I think that helps it, but you can still use it even though you're not running the football well.
Sure. Just, if you can sell it, because linebackers read keys and they're reading low hat versus high hat, those types of things. If you can sell it, you can still be effective with play action, even if your run game is not particularly strong.
Dustin Stover, how unthinkable would it be to have James Daniels take over for Cole at center and then have Dan Moore Jr. slide in at right guard? We know how Cole's play has been, and Herbig has not been overly impressive so far. He writes, would love to hear your thoughts on this. Look, I mean, we've talked about, it's just talk. I mean, about the potential of James Daniels taking over for Cole. If that could, of all the things that you just mentioned here, Dustin, the most believable thing that could probably happen would be James Daniels moving over to center. But you're not going to see Dan Moore Jr. Slide in at right guard, I wouldn't think. To me, though, Herbig has been this team's backup center. The most likely thing, if Cole was to go down or for whatever reason, I would think that the most likely move would be Herbig taking over at center, and then you decide between. It would probably be Spencer Anderson, probably, right, at right guard.
Yeah, or Dylan Cook got some guard work late, and there's some call-ups. I mean, that's all, we'll cross those bridges if and hopefully we don't come to that. I mean, Moore is not going to go to right guard, not now. I mean, it's just that kind of in-season switch is just not going to happen. I mean, I think Cole's going to remain the center for better or for worse. I don't think they're going to change up the O-line too much.
I don't think they're going to, barring injuries, I think, and us finally finding out if Broderick Jones is going to be your left tackle, I think that's the only thing you can look forward to.
Yeah, that's the only debate in my mind, at least for this game, until injuries occur, that it's just a question of the starting left tackle.
I mean, we could sit here and speculate till the cows come home if Daniels goes here and all like that. But I mean, what good is doing that unless it's forced by injury, because it doesn't seem likely to happen.
Yep, I'm with you, Dave.
Let's see. Paul Brown has a question about Tomlin Tuesday. During the Tomlin Tuesday press conference, there was a question regarding Steelers giving up the 8th most pass yards, to which Tomlin responded, "I'm not worried about stats like that. If you're not worried about the amount of pass yards you're giving up, and you're also not very good against the run, what are you worried about?" He says. Is this a case of Tomlin not wanting to give up his full game plan, or is he just being coy with me? I just think he's just bypassing the question. I mean, I think Tomlin sees and knows about the warts. He's just not open to discussing those warts in detail.
Yeah, I think you're right. I just don't think he wanted to address every single stat that's out there negatively against the Steelers, because there are lots of them. I did think he was a little too defensive answering that pretty simple, basic question. Could just say, secondary's got to play better. We understand it's a passing league. He could have said a bunch of things, but end of the day, moving on from that.
Right. All right. I think we got through most of these emails here, and I think we're running up on an hour and a half here. Any other things we need to get to here, Alex?
Nope. I think we're good. Players talking now. I assume Kenny Pickett will speak later today, and coordinators tomorrow. So we'll talk about that for Friday's show.
And I think Broderick Jones told me he still doesn't know if he'll start Sunday. He'll just keep working on improving, which is the right answer to give at that point. All right, we will be back on Friday getting people ready for Steelers versus Rams. We're still trying to effort a beat writer from the Rams, and that might be a little bit tough, but in the meantime, we'll dive deeper into the all 22, and whether or not we have a beat writer or not on Friday, we'll still try to give you as good a look as we can about the Steelers' next opponent on Sunday at SoFi Stadium. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Find the donate button that way, or if you want an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com, find the ad-free button, follow the directions that way. So good job, Alex. I appreciate it. We will talk again on Friday. So as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.